If I said that we were going to study cosmology, what would we be studying? And it's not beauty school. That is cosmetology. And so this is not a topic about seaweed facials and getting your hair did, okay? If we were going to study cosmology, interestingly enough, though, cosmetology and cosmology have the same Greek root, cosmos, which means orderly or harmonious arrangement. So did you know when you were getting your hairs did that you were getting orderly and harmonious arrangement, right? But cosmology is the study of the universe. Cosmology, the study of the universe, it encapsulates its origin, its evolution, and even its eventual fate. So cosmology. And then when you enter into that, the relationship of spirituality or metaphysics or even religion in and of itself, you're bringing humanity into the study of cosmology. And so it's humanity's relationship with the universe. So cosmology, the study of the universe, spiritual or metaphysical cosmology is you and I, our relationship with this thing called the universe. And so what is the universe? It's not just a planet. It's not just a galaxy. In fact, let's go to the big book, shall we, by Ernest Holmes. If you don't have this, you may be facing an afterlife burning somewhere. But I'm just saying, it's in the bookstore. Go now. No. Ernest Holmes, in The Science of Mind, what's so cool in the big book in the back is a dictionary of terms of taking these particular phrases and giving you the metaphysical interpretation. So universe, looked it up. Ernest Holmes said that the universe is the cosmic world. The cosmic world. He said, in this energy system, in this universe, there is one power alone. One power alone that exists. And so we've talked about this, of course, endless times, that one power we call God, we call it source, we call it infinite intelligence, we call it creation itself. So the universe is comprised of one power, the power of God. And what is an attribute, a word that we use to describe God often? Perfection. That which is of God is this harmonious divine order. And so here's the cool thing. Ernest says, then if the universe were not perfect, it could not exist for a single moment. If the universe was not perfect, it could not exist for a single moment. So in our day-to-day stuff, how many times do we forget that we live in a universe of perfection? An energy of divine, Alexa, we live in this perfect, if the universe were not perfect, it could not exist for a single moment because it's self-evident, then everything in it must be what? Perfect. Are you in it? Therefore you are? Isn't deductive reasoning 101? Look at you, A+, right? When was the last time, then, that you really paused for a moment and looked at the cosmology of all that is, the universe, the divine order, realizing that the universe itself could not exist unless it was comprised of this order, this beauty, and that all of the attributes that make up the universe must also be perfect? Now, I don't know about you, but in my human life, I'm far from perfect, though some of you, I'm sure, think that that's true. But just see me when I wake up in the morning. But we then, why are we here then in the universe? In order to uncover, I love that word, uncover, you're like a spiritual archaeologist, to uncover the perfection of you. So we can say it like this: we are perfectly imperfect. And our imperfection describes our human condition. But the perfection describes our heavenly persona, that which is the all-encompassing cosmology of all that is. And so at some point, if you stick around long enough as a student of truth, you have to come to that crossroad whereby you are willing to consider that that is your truth. That underneath all of the flaws that you and I so dutifully focus on, that underneath that, there must exist a perfection. Otherwise, this entire system would collapse. And I don't know about you, but I'm leaning towards the idea that this cosmology in and of itself, this cosmic world, is perfect. And my whole mission, my whole reason for being is to actually not take myself so seriously, not look at the world of effect and label it as truth, but look beyond that to look through all of the various veils of illusion. You and I are given so many veils. There's the dance of the 7 veils every day. Just going through those veils of illusion in order to get to that place where you realize that even in the apparent absence of order, there must be order. And that includes your life, my life as well. And so he says, it is self-evident, then everything in it must be perfect. So the student of truth must realize, and then here's a big word, must realize and maintain that he lives in a perfect universe. How do you maintain that? That is what we call spiritual practice. That's why you and I do this. That's why we gather together, because a lot of times it's easier for us to come into an environment of like-mindedness in order to be reminded of that truth, because a lot of times when we leave or we get out into the world of effect, we forget. We forget. And so he says, then we live in a perfect universe among perfect people. Take that in for a second. Among perfect people. Woo! Yes, that means that person that you're thinking about right now. So he says, this is our premise. This is our premise. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. That becomes our mantra as a student of truth. And even though we can't see it, and even though we fall short many, many times, that in no way evaporates or takes away your innate sense of perfection. So to say that you by your very nature is perfect is not egoic. In fact, it's the opposite. To deny your perfection comes from the ego. Because the egoic part of that, ego meaning separation, wants to pull and do anything to prevent you from understanding that you are a part of the whole, that you are one. And so Marcus Aurelius, the Greek emperor, said, he who does not know what the world is, does not know where he is. How many of you, are you lost? I don't know where I am. That means that he who does not know what the world is, what did we just define the world to be? Perfect. He who does not know that the world is perfect does not know where he is. So it means that we are walking the planet, we're living and breathing, but we're not doing it consciously. Because to know this truth, to know what you are a part of, means that there is nothing outside of you that can diminish the quality of your life unless you give it permission to. I like to say that there's only 2 energies ever going on. If you were a student of the Course in Miracles, you would be told that's love and fear. One other way to look at it is resisting and allowing. And so when we are in this cosmology, the universe, which is perfect, but we can't see it, and we're not doing the practice like we were just offered to do, then chances are we are in the energy of resistance. We are resisting that perfection. One way in which we resist the perfection, the innate sense of us, is by going around and repeating the story about what's wrong. What's wrong with you, about focusing on the flaw, on focusing on the story, about who did me wrong, and what happened oh so long ago. That is living in that essence, that energy of resistance. When we move into the space of allowing, which is this beautiful lifelong process, because everything is infinite, right? So even the energy of allowing is infinite. So once you open the portal of being willing to align with your perfection more and more every single day, then it's like that tipping point that we talked about. If you could do more allowing and less resistance, then it's as if that scale just really tips over and we start to see the fruits of our thinking by living in this universe that is giving to us and reciprocally matching us where we are in that ability to allow. But it doesn't work any other way than that. So if we stay in the resistance, we get a resistant universe. Doesn't mean that the universe is not perfect. It just means that that's the only part that we're willing to participate in. And so when we get righteous in our anger, in our indignation, when we get righteously attached to what was done to us, then what happens is we've moved back into that energy of resistance and we continue to produce the same. It's wonderful how that works, right? That's the law. The truth shall set you free, but first it will piss you off. So Marcus Aurelius, the Greek emperor, says, he who does not know what the world is does not know where he is. I want you to know where you are. Where you are is a field of infinite possibility, field of infinite potentiality. Every single day, every 24-hour capsule that you and I are given is this opportunity to just go, wow, how far can I take this? How far can I take my sense of allowing? And then Aurelius goes on to say, and he who does not know for what purpose the world exists does not know who he is nor what the world is. Why do you think the universe, why do you think this cosmology exists? I think for us, it's in order for us to have a training ground to grow and to play. I mean, how perfectly designed is this? If I want to grow, I'm not going to grow by having something or someone do it for me. I'm going to grow by being willing to see illusion and bust through it. You know, very much like the knight and the dragon. As long as the knight continues to run away from the dragon is always in control. But the moment the knight stops and he turns around and goes, you have no power over me. And that's what he does. But he has a sword in his hand. You have no power over me. Then the dragon's like, you're right, you know? And all of a sudden, the illusion of that fire nipping at our butt all the time ceases because we are in the moment, we know who we are, we know where we are. And so, isn't it fascinating how we sometimes try to outrun all of that? How many of you have relocated only to recreate the same quality of people in your life? Wherever you go, there's the dragon. Right? And so he who does not know what the purpose of the world is does not know who he is. So the purpose of the world, this cosmology, this universe, is not to give you a hard time. The purpose of the universe is not to create a lifestyle of everything falling apart and it's unfair. It's the complete opposite of that. The cosmology of the universe is order, cosmos, Greek, order, beauty, resonance. So everything is set up and designed to lead you and I, to handhold us into a greater sense of awareness. But nobody's going to do it for you. It's up to you and I to take responsibility for the quality of our life. And isn't it fascinating? It doesn't matter how long we've been doing this. It doesn't matter if you've read this book from cover to cover, been to every seminar, listened to every tape. There are still moments in our day when we fall prey to that idea of separation, when we become resistant. And that just means that our path, our job is continuous. Isn't it wonderful that we never quite get there? I love the Abraham Hicks when they say, you'll never get it done and you'll never get it wrong. Now there's a to-do list for you, right? You'll never get it done and you'll never get it wrong. And so what that means to me is very much what Ernest Holmes said, be open at the top. Because there is no cap, there is no ceiling to that which is infinite. And so here we are, exactly, for what the purpose of the world exists. He who does not know who he is or what the world is does not understand why the world is here. And what's the question that we often ask ourselves? Who are you? Why are you here? Why are you here? And I've repeatedly said over and over that what we are, why we're here, is to be a vessel or an instrument, like open at the top, this vessel by which the infinite nature of that which is the cosmos can pour itself into you, the personality of you, in order for you, your own brand of being, to now go out and express that order in the unique way that you're going to do it. And that's why you matter. That's why you matter. And I often tell you, oneness, we talk about the fact that we are one. Oneness does not mean sameness. And so your persona, your personality is going to take this and go out into this field of the universe and express this and be a part of that which is the vibrational expansion of all of life. Yes, that's your responsibility. You can put that on your resume. That's your purpose. That's why you're here, to express that which is the infinite by means of you. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if we had a passion for singing and songwriting and we said, yeah, but all the love songs have already been written. But no one's going to write it the way that you're going to write it. No one's going to express what it is that you do, your passion, the way that you're going to do it. So in this cosmology of creation, which is infinite, you are called upon to understand and to know who and what you are. So what is this universe and why are we here? I love in the very back of The Science of Mind when Ernest Holmes starts to pull varying scriptures from the Bible and give a metaphysical spin to it. And in this particular topic, he picked the scripture of 1 Thessalonians. And there are three components in this scripture of 1 Thessalonians. And the first one was rejoice evermore. Rejoice evermore. Ernest Holmes said, there is no sadness in spirit. Rejoice evermore. There is no sadness in spirit. In other words, that which is the cosmos, that which is the universe, and then the religious or the spiritual component of that cosmology does not house, does not keep, does not foster or pamper sadness. Now, sadness, of course, is this beautiful emotion that gives you and I the opportunity to express a feeling. But do you get that you're not supposed to live in that feeling? You can't even live in the feeling of happiness 24/7. Because I'm happy, It's great, but after a while, you want it to stop. So that's the beauty of this wide range of emotion, is to give us, the vessel of us, the ability to process and feel. And one emotion isn't better than the other. So happiness isn't better than sadness. It's just the vehicle by which this human form gets to process and express. But we are not to live in the sadness. And so what is amazing about this particular dynamic of rejoicing evermore is to understand what your inherent nature is. If we knew who we really were, then that sadness would just be like a blink of an eye, because we would return back to the order. We would know there is no death. We would know there is no finality. We would know that there is nothing unfair. We would realize that no one is taking anything away from us. We would realize that abandonment is an illusion because we're never alone. We would just be so rooted in this thing we call principle that our soul would rejoice evermore. And so as I've been working on my book deadline and going through lots of my writings and stories, I remembered and recalled a woman that was in one of my classes, and this was years and years and years ago when I was still in Los Angeles. And I don't know her name. It was a large class, but I did recognize that she had been coming. Like, this was her third class in a row. And she was very quiet. And finally, one class, she made a comment. And her comment was, "God, give me strength." And I just thought, that's so odd. You know, when you're in this teaching long enough, you start to pick up on things that are dualistic in nature. You know, so the phrase, God give me strength, indicates what? That something outside of her, this deity, has got a little strength right here, and you go, okay, there. And it doles it out to us, you know, on special occasions. Here's your strength. Okay. Rather than realizing that there is no, this is a non-dualistic universe. There are no two powers. Remember, the study of cosmology is that there's only one power. So what does that mean then about the quality of strength? That it exists. It's within. It's not external. But yet many of us do the same thing. We look for some kind of relief outside of ourselves when the very thing inward that will provide the relief is already there. The wisdom is already there. The strength is already there. The knowing is already there, right? And so we started to dialogue with this woman. And she broke down in frustration. And this is what I wrote. She spoke about her 50-plus year struggle with being overweight. Her memories of being abnormal, as she said, started as early as 3. And she had calculated that throughout her years on the dieting journey, she had gained and lost nearly 1,000 pounds. And when she experienced a thinner frame, better jobs had appeared and being loved, quote, quote, had surfaced, giving her a glimpse of its possibility. When she regained the weight, the jobs would evaporate, much like the affections of the world. The return to her undesirable state, as she called it, had left her with an undercurrent of seeming impenetrable futility. Yet here she was, week after week, in another spiritual class, looking at spiritual principles, even voicing spiritual affirmations. So her attendants told me that there was still some semblance of hope that within her existed the possibility for self-love and happiness. She elaborated on how much of her association with getting and receiving love had been woven into the amount that she weighed. Her mother had constantly berated her about her looks as a child, and she felt her mother's withhold of affection as an indication that her appearance was the reason. Her solution: fix the appearance, get the love. Not a one of us in here who hasn't done that. Fix the appearance, fix something on the external in order to get something in return. And what we realize about that is that will never last. And so what we learn is to stop looking outside of ourselves for validation. And it doesn't matter how long that takes. But hopefully, in being in this kind of environment, you will begin to implement that sooner than later. And you will start to experiment that there is no outside validation. That the validation takes place on the inner self, and then the world reflects that back. And so when we're trying to do it the other way, then it has a very short shelf life, and it does not sustain. And so we can spend an entire life yo-yoing, trying to figure out, how do I get this love? Our value then becomes predicated on what? Someone else's opinion. So I remember in this class we went around and I had all of the students say affirming things about her. And some of them knew her and they were saying, you have a tremendous work ethic and you're wonderful, kind-hearted, you have beautiful shimmering silver hair. And she laughed a little bit and teared up and then she just went, enough. And as we sat there and tried to let her feel that, you could feel the anxiety. You could feel the anxiety. And Anais Nin, the writer, said, anxiety is love's greatest killer. It makes others feel as you might when a drowning man holds on to you. You want to save him, but you know he will strangle you with his panic. And so in this panic of what? What are the two energies? Resistance and allowing. In this moment, this defining moment, And we've all been there. In that moment where you have the opportunity to move from resistance to allowing. So often the muscle has been worked, the resistant muscle has been worked, that it just becomes that reflex and we don't know how to take it. And so we keep going. What I know and what I believe in is that even if that happens, they're going to get it someplace eventually. Maybe in the next lifetime, but they're going to get it. And so I say, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What does it take for us to understand that value and that you are a part of that cosmology? And as I was reflecting on that story this week and I was thinking about that, I remember that her attendance started to wane and soon she was gone and I never saw her again. And I thought to myself, if she had continued to come, and this is the way the universe works, if she had continued to come, she would have no other recourse than to really look at that, right? And to make more and more the opportunity or the option to move into the energy of allowing. And when people are not ready for that, then they all find an exit strategy, right? And so to her, I said she was not ready to let her unworthiness starve. And so rejoice evermore means it doesn't matter how long this has been going on. The sadness is not meant to linger. And the thing that lifts that veil is by understanding and remembering who you are. By remembering who you are. Made me think of another woman too, and I had a class, just refined Southern woman in Alabama. And oh my God, one night she just went off about how horrible her ex-husband was. He's ruined my life. Present tense, he's ruined my life. And we were all like, wow, because it was just so voluminous, in our expression. And finally, when I could get a word in, I said, wow, when did this happen? 38 years ago. You laugh, but we do it too. I'm only 37, but anyway. So, rejoice evermore. So, 1 Thessalonians, rejoice evermore. The second one was pray without ceasing. Pray without ceasing. Now, prayer, what we've come to understand, prayer is, it's really a conversation. Prayer is a conversation. Ernest Holmes said that constant prayer then is a constant affirming on the side of life, or a constant affirming on the side of cosmology or the universe. Prayer is a practice. Prayer is a lifestyle. It is not an emergency exit. So our relationship to a higher power is a practice. It's a practice. It's a lifestyle. It's not something that's held in reserve for crisis. And what I love about this philosophy is the way in which we re-educate ourselves to pray. Because many of us were taught to pray a separate prayer. A prayer of supplication, a prayer of beseeching, of asking, of bargaining. And when you start to walk on this path as a student of truth, you realize if everything is all, and you are a part of the all, then who am I praying to? Who am I bargaining to? Because that which is God is a part of me. And so the whole dynamic of prayer changes. And we call it affirmative prayer, or we call it a spiritual mind treatment. You're treating the mind spiritually to remember your part of cosmology. Awesome. And so our prayer is a prayer exactly rooted in that awareness. So if you've taken a class, if you've studied this kind of prayer, you know that it's based on 5 steps. The first step being recognition. And what are you recognizing? God is all that there is. Key word being all. Key word is all. God is all that there is. The second step of the prayer then is called unification, which means that if I'm going to have the audacity to use the word all, God is all that there is, then I must be what? One with that. I must be a part of that which is God. I have to unify myself with that particular awareness. And so my prayer then is not something external. My prayer is an acknowledgement or a recognition of that which already is. And so the middle part of the prayer then is the affirmative prayer, the affirmation part. Again, it's not an asking, it's a declaration. When you declare something, you're not asking for permission. You're declaring. So the prayer then becomes something like, instead of asking to be healed, you are recognizing that wholeness already exists. Wholeness already exists within each and every one of us. Instead of praying and asking for financial support, you and I are praying and understanding that that which is infinite, boundless prosperity already exists. And so here's the thing again with the tipping point scale, is that when we are living in that energy of resistance, because of law, the reciprocal nature of law, then we continue to get more things that are of a resistant nature. But that does not change the quality of the universe. Because the quality of the universe is absolute love. And isn't it brilliantly designed that something that is rooted in absolute love is going to say, okay, you get to choose. I'm not going to choose for you. If you want to choose to live in resistance, then you get to participate in the law in that way, and what you will continue to manifest is more resistance. However, I love you enough. The law is only love. That if you choose to move into the energy of allowing, then in that beautiful reciprocal nature, I will bring you more of the nature of allowing. And so our prayer then is a declaration, it's an affirmation of knowing that what we desire already fully exists. And even in the apparent absence of it, and again, there's the beauty of the human journey. There's the beauty of the path of faith, is that every single day, pray without ceasing. I don't know about you, but to do affirmative prayer without ceasing means that I am in constant conversation with the cosmos. I am in constant conversation. I'm going, look at that. Look at that veil. Look at that illusion. Aw, God's there. God's there. Because there only can be God. But isn't it amazing? We have such triggers. You know? All we have to do is read one report. All we have to do is get one nasty Facebook message. All we have to do is get one thing that draws us back into that energy of resistance. And we go, more work to do. More work to do. Rejoice evermore. Pray without ceasing. Without ceasing, because it is a conversation. And then the last one is quench not the spirit. Quench not the spirit means do not extinguish your God self. And one of the fastest ways that you and I extinguish our God self is by participating in the poison of comparison. By looking at somebody else, by assuming that they have it better than you, that they're more spiritual than you, that they're this, that they're that. You're to this, you're to that. You are quenching the spirit. You are quenching the spiritual cosmology that is wanting to take place on an infinite level inside of you. And we are told not to do that. I love the writer Anne Lamott. If you've ever read any of her stuff, it's just absolutely brilliant. And I came across this quote of hers this week. It said, "Oh my God, what if you wake up someday and you're 65 or you're 75 and you never got your memoir or novel written, or you didn't go swimming in warm pools and oceans all those years because your thighs were jiggly and you had a nice big comfortable tummy? or you were just so strung out on perfectionism and people-pleasing, the perfectionism she's talking about is the one that's rooted in ego. The one that's rooted in comparison, not the one that we're associating with the cosmos. Perfection, the perfectionism that kills all creativity, by the way, is in trying to compare yourself to someone else. She says, or you were so strung out on perfectionism and people-pleasing that you forgot to have a big, juicy, creative life. A life of imagination and radical silliness and staring off into space like when you were a kid. It's going to break your heart. Don't let this happen. Repent just means to change direction. And not to be said by someone who is wagging their forefinger at you. Repentance is a blessing. Pick a new direction. One you wouldn't mind ending up at, and aim for that. Aim for that. And aim for that now. Not when the kids are off to school. Not when you're out of debt. Not when you feel better. Not when the rain stops. Not when you lose 10 pounds. Now. Now. Quench not the spirit means wake up and begin to understand your part in the cosmology of all that is. The necessity of you. The beauty of you. And you remember a few weeks ago, I was reading the part from Ernest Holmes where he talked about so many of us try to fix fragments. Fragments. I want more money. What does money represent? Freedom. So instead of focusing always on more money, why not look, why pick just a fragment when you can have the whole? So the whole is what? Endless freedom. When I begin to pick and focus on the wholeness of freedom, then that which is money or that which has anything to do with my creative self-expression is freed up in such a way that I can begin to understand and encapsulate and incorporate and embody my freedom, my wholeness. If I'm always trying to find someone to love and someone to love me, that is a fragment. That's not the whole of you. The whole of you is already pure love. So stop looking for love because love is all around you. Just open your eyes. That's the wholeness of the experience of that. And we start to see that when we deal in fragments rather than dealing with the wholeness, what is it that I really want? My soul just wants to align with its inherent nature, which is to love and to be and to express and to stop waiting for permission. You do not need permission to express your spirit. Just the mere fact that you are here is permission enough. And so as you take a deep breath this morning, I invite you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine once again that you are staring at your own reflection in a mirror. As you stare at that reflection, you can hear these words, rejoice evermore. Who is speaking that? The essence of you, the soul of you, is looking right in your eyes and it's saying, lighten up. Rejoice evermore. The story is only as valid as the energy that you give it. And the moment that we choose to rejoice evermore, that beautiful reciprocal nature of law brings us more to rejoice about. And as we look at that reflection, we are told to pray without ceasing. It just means be in conversation, become conscious Become conscious of what you're telling yourself. Become conscious of what you're speaking. Become conscious of the people that you're hanging out with. Become conscious of what is true. And to stay in that conversation. And then to quench not your spirit. Do not cut off or deny your brilliance. And begin to understand that these components are a guiding post, a roadmap, a foundation by which we can align with the spiritual cosmology, my relationship to this divine world. And as I always pray, not only do we hear this, but we embody it, and we do not settle for anything less than this. So I know today as we leave, we may leave a physical space, but we do not leave the energy, the essence, the vibration of these truths because we have value. Your energy, my energy, our collective energy is vital. And so wherever I go, I take my energy with me. I take my truth with me. I take my conversation with me. And as I become more and more conscious of that, I beautifully accept the responsibility of what it means to be a student of truth. And I hold that within my heart as sacred. And I rejoice evermore. And I pray without ceasing. And I do not quench my spirit. And for these things and for this truth, and for this awareness, and for life in and of itself, I am so very grateful. And taking a deep cleansing breath in, let us fill ourselves from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet. Just let that air just feed every molecule within our body. It's a molecule of life. It's the nafsha. It is the origin. It is the Genesis seed. It's the primordial nature of who and what we are, feeding every single bit of us right here, right now. And we are whole, and we are perfect, and we are complete. And together we say, and so it is.